Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the next episode of Muscle Minds. Today we are we're going to go in deep with muscle rounds. We'll discuss what failure means, and we're going to go into a little bit of am I saying this right, Scott? Kwan Loong Oil.
Kwan Loong Oil.
Kwan Loong Oil. We're going to talk about that and a bunch more, guys, on this episode of Muscle Minds. We're going to do that right now. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Muscle Minds with Dr. Scott Stevenson. I'm Scott McNally. We are recording this episode live on Facebook. We're taking questions, and Scott has some stuff prepared that we're gonna work on. I wanted to mention too, guys. Of course, we are sponsored by True Nutrition. You can use our code ADVICES for some additional savings. A lot of great high quality supplements from them, which we'll run an ad for them a little bit later. And I talk more specifically about that stuff in some of the other shows. And of course, Be Your Own Bodybuilding Coach, Dr. Scott's book. Check that out. Scott, what's up, man? Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, it's not New Year yet. You're jumping the gun here, but
well,
yes,
it'll be I think the 2nd when this comes out.
So, true. Gotcha. Yeah, you're so on top of it, man.
So it's the future.
You're living in two different timelines. You know, the true timeline and the timeline that people will experience when they watch the actual show.
Yes. So, yeah. Tell everybody what you were just telling me before we started. You were doing some you were doing some Instagram Live this morning. I just figured I'd just kind of create some footage. Some people just like I mean, I as much as I want to try to use my Instagram account to try to, provide higher level information. Sometimes people just like to watch shit. Sure.
Probably, I don't know, a quarter of the comments that I'll get suggest that they haven't read anything that was written. They just have looked at the pictures, and that's totally, expected. So I just filmed some muscle rounds, and part of that too was I'm waiting. I'm gonna I have to come up with some special prize for the first person to actually provide an accurate description of how to do a fortitude training muscle round.
I know I failed the first time I tried.
That was a long time ago, though. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you were working too hard. You were grinding out reps and not doing them continuously. Yeah. You were out. And that's, it's funny, Scott, because I think about it. When I was trying to do a Titan training muscle round, which, without any real description of what to do, that's exactly what I did. I just said, get as many reps as you possibly can. I'm like, I'm going to do 6 Widowmakers with a really heavy weight, basically. So I can't blame you for that. But no, everyone just the notion, it's such a fascinating thing, because now in the training talk spheres on Instagram and on Facebook and elsewhere, there's the volume is the driver of muscle growth on one hand.
Okay.
And then the other, almost I would say indisputable notion, is that progressive overload some way, shape, or form has to manifest.
Yeah, yeah.
And when people talk about muscle rounds, they just miss out on the progressive overload idea.
What do you mean?
Well, the idea is you don't just go and do 6 sets of 4.
Okay.
Because how would you know what weight to choose? You just pull the pin and just do just the floating rod that allows you to add more weight when you put the pin in the stack. There's no notion of a failure point or progression from the 4th to the 5th to the 6th set of the muscle round. Immediately and that's why I was so confused with Leo Costa's muscle rounds, is he didn't really dictate a load or failure points of those sorts of things. So I just took the hardest route possible.
Okay. Yeah.
But if you're to use some kind of a set, be it a cluster set or a straight set or a drop set or what have you, you're going to come back to that exercise on a repeated basis, and you believe in progressive overload, then you need to know the specifics of how to choose the load and what to do when you have failure points. So, for instance, if you just do 6 sets of 4, let's just take the poorly programmed cyborg automaton bodybuilding who's just told to do 6 sets of 4. So just picks 100 pounds, does 6 sets of 4, and barely gets the 4th rep on the 6th set, and then continues to kind of grow or try to grow and try to get better, and then eventually just continues to do 6 sets of 4. and doesn't change the weight, doesn't, and eventually the 6 sets of 4 is absolute breeze,
Right.
but does nothing to progressively overload. There's no rules, rhyme or reason to that. So it's, I'm piecing some things together here. It's very much like what you see in terms of and this is when I use the term bodybuilding brain candy, I kind of say that facetiously, but when you see a lot of times workouts or strategies that are put out in isolation. So here's a great workout for your hamstrings, or here's the best arm workout. That's the one you see more than anything.
Absolutely.
Try to try this arm workout.
Right.
So, but that doesn't tell you how to fit that in. It's sort of like, here's a great spice.
Yeah.
So is it like a garlic salt that I might like want to put on some pasta, or maybe even on a meat or in an omelet?
Yeah.
Or is it something that I'm going to put on my pancakes, or drizzle over an ice cream? Is it sweet? Is it salty? Like there's nothing. It's just like, here's a salt. Well, you need to know how to fit it into the recipe that you're putting together to try to create progressive overload and progressively become a bigger, larger, more impressive, well-developed bodybuilder.
Yeah, that makes
sense.
So
when you just toss out, do 6 sets of 4, it doesn't tell you at all what to do with the spice. It's just like, here's a cool spice. This is my favorite spice. Like, well, is it go good with chicken? Or should I just use it with salmon? Or, should I put it in my noodles? What do I do? And it's a funny thing, but like that, it requires some more, obviously, intellectual effort to try to figure out how to integrate those things.
Yeah.
And I love it when people take muscle rounds and they integrate them into their own training system.
Okay.
It tells you they're thinking about stuff. I don't care if people adopt none or all of what I have set out in fortitude training as it exists now. But if someone's taken some of those ideas and utilize, that's cool. It's like, okay, now you're the thinking man's bodybuilder. You figured out how to kind of do that.
Yeah.
And so that was part of why I filmed those muscle rounds today. It's just to kind of show how you do them. And some of them, I was burning through because I wanted to get have a little bit of time for the podcast because we were starting early today. But I was just burning through and just picking weights as best I could. And on one of them, I think I got 5 or 6 reps on the last set, which I took to failure. You don't just do 6 sets of 4 and stop if it's not a failure point. And then on some of the other ones, one of them at least, I think I got into the 4th set and only got 1 true good rep, and then failed on the 2nd.
Okay.
And then I adjusted the weight down.
Yeah.
So
you're shooting for 4, right? And that's your goal is to, well, you could do more than 4 though. You stop at 4.
Yeah.
And then you take a 10-second pause.
It's actually real simple.
Okay.
It's actually, I got a description. It's 5 or 6 posts back. You're doing 6 sets, and you're going to do sets of 4 unless you happen to fail. You want to pick a load that you can at least get halfway through those 6 sets of 4. So get into the 4th one. If you fail on the 4th or the 5th, you drop the load down so you can get the remaining sets of 4 without a failure point.
Okay.
If you don't fail and you get into the 6th one and you get all 4 reps, then you just go until failure.
Okay.
Simple as that.
And you take how long in between each set?
Either 10 seconds or 5 rests, and that depends on obviously with legs, your breathing's going to be so fast.
Yeah.
You're going to have to use a watch probably.
Yeah. I've
gotten pretty good at I've kind of compared myself over the years with knowing, kind of keeping a sense about me, but there's a time dilation type of thing that happens.
Oh yeah.
It's actually the opposite. It's kind of a time constriction. During your legs, holy shit, that was 10 seconds. That felt like 2.
Yeah.
So you have to watch. And it makes it more difficult. And there's nothing, you could go longer if you wanted to, but I think, as I've mentioned before, I set the work to rest intervals up to be the same, roughly 5 breaths or 10 seconds equates that, because then you can do unilateral muscle rounds.
Oh, and that's brutal too. That's really tough because you don't get any rest then, right?
Psychologically, they're brutal. Yeah, you don't. No, you just go back and forth, until you hit failure points. So you can so that's there's your notion of progressive overload in the muscle round. If you get to the 4th one and you fail on the 2nd rep, and then you write that down. You say, okay, next time I come back around, I like to at least get 3 reps.
There you go.
Or get into the 5th rep, and then you can progress, or the 5th set, and then you can progress where you fail in the 5th set, and the sixth set, and when you can get all 6 sets of 4 or beyond, then you move the weight up.
Yeah, and
Way
that's
to do it.
it's so different than when we first start lifting weights. Our idea of increasing of progressing would be just lifting more, right? You're going to be lifting.
Yeah.
It would have to be more weight. You got to put more on the bar, and it's so we don't stop and think about that. The fact that getting that 3 reps instead of 2 is going to be a benefit. Though I want to back up for a second because
But
you
just,
had.
let me go back before you go all the way further back.
Okay.
But it's simple. Like 3 sets of 10.
Yeah.
Like let's say you get 10, you get 9, you get 7.
Yeah.
Like with the same weight. So then you come back and you can get 10, you get 10, you get 8. Like you're just getting more reps until eventually you can get 3 sets of 10, and then you go up with the weight.
Yeah.
It's conceptually it's that simple. You're just using with cluster sets. You're trying to get more and more reps with the same weight until you get that requisite 6 sets of 4, and then you can go up.
Now, what I was going to say,
Yes.
Scott, is that going to what you initially said, you like to be able to impart people with, solid information, which you do. I think that showing what you're doing with your muscle around or any exercise is some of that I learn so much from that. Cause I think about, like we mentioned before we started that we're planning on talking on the show with John Meadows next week. And when I first discovered his training and his methodologies, I was reading it all off of a message board, and I started interpreting that and applying it. And my interpretation was very different than Shelby's interpretation when I started working out with him. He was doing John's programs, and he had, all of John's notes that John had sent him about how to carry out each particular set and rep. And it all like a bunch of light bulbs clicked on for me through being with someone else, seeing someone else do it. So there is something to be said, I think, about, actually showing people. And maybe it's me. I'm a visual learner.
Absolutely. Yeah. That different learning styles. Some people like to hear it.
Yeah.
They need to then sort of reiterate it and say it back to you. It's like, is this what you're saying? Others need to see it, and they kind of learn that way. Others like to read it.
Yeah.
There's so many. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things. Like back when I was teaching more sort of officially in the university or educational setting, is I would like to figure out how you learn best. Do you need to draw pictures? Do you need to teach things, say it out loud and verbalize it? Do you need to see it? So you're totally right. Yeah. It's I would rather be able to go and do the set and then maybe do a voiceover as well, and maybe even have something written out and provide sort of the complete picture in terms of different ways of learning. But there's nothing wrong with just turning on it was so easy to do. Just flip on the phone and go.
Yeah.
So
we got a couple questions that came up. Okay. Richard Luna asked what your Instagram handle is. We have that in the show notes, but in case you just want to check them out now while you're watching this live, it's fortitude_training, right?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
And then on the what's that?
That's a good question.
It is.
What the hell is Instagram? Damn it.
And then related to this topic, David asks, so if the last time I failed at 4th, next time start lighter and go through 6, or just keep the same weight and try to pass the 4th?
So there's this sort of advanced notion. So some people, and this somewhat kind of depends on the muscle group perhaps, or what you find is the best way for you to grow, or what you find is the best way for a given exercise to ensure a good, strong mind-muscle connection. So if you like to train heavier, and training heavier still gives you a good mind-muscle connection, and it's not like biceps. Like some people arms don't do well with really heavy loading for a lot of people. Yeah. Just tendonitis creeps up. Then you would not want to go you would want to go on the lighter end of things. So the idea with the muscle round is you've got sort of somewhat of a range. If you fail in the 4th or the 5th or the 6th, or get past that 4th rep in the 6th, then that's about the range of where I would set up a muscle round to be in my training system.
Okay.
So if you'd like to train heavy, you literally could fail in the 4th, like he's asking about, and and then drop the weight down, usually about 10 to 30%. And we've talked about this before, but I'll talk about it again because it needs to be talked about. Apparently people miss it a lot.
Or they may not have seen this. Some people might be turning into this for the first time.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. You can creep that weight up so that you continue to fail in the fourth.
Okay.
You just keep on failing because that means you're going to train with a heavier load.
Okay.
If you're failing in the fourth as opposed to the sixth, and you can just stay in the heavy zone of the muscle round. Or if you like to beat the logbook, so to speak, and watch the reps go up as opposed to the load so much, then you just stick with that. Let's say you failed on the third rep of the fourth set, first time you go with 100 pounds. Yeah. And the next time you get all 4 reps in the fourth and you get a good rep in the fifth, you fail on the second, you come back around to that exercise again, and now you get into the fifth set, and you get 3 reps.
Yeah.
And eventually you just stick with that 100 pounds until you can progressively move your way up, workout by workout, to where you can get all 6 sets of 4 before you fail. Now the thing is, people say just 6 sets of 4. If you do 6 sets of 4 and you're nowhere near failure, it makes sense to take that 6th set beyond to failure, just to have the failure point. I think there's something to say for the stimulation that comes in the sort of effective reps schema from doing a failure point like that, and we can talk about that too. But sometimes it's like if you just wrote 6 sets of 4 and didn't fail, that doesn't give you any information as to what you should change the next time around. I mean, I've seen people get like 17 reps in the 6th set because they were way too light.
Yeah. I've done that myself when I didn't have it gauged properly,
Yeah. So it's like you do that and you're like, okay, shit, I can go up substantially in terms of the load. So you can progress and keep your failure point in that 4th set, or you could keep it in the 6th, or you could allow the reps to creep up from the 4th to the 5th to the 6th before you change the load. So it's whatever you want to do. And actually it could even be like you could go the other way. If you're someone who really likes to kick ass with the loads, you've got a new exercise you're kind of trying out, or you've ever done muscle rounds with, and you may start off and let's say you get 200 pounds on there and you get into the 6th set before you fail. And you're like, okay, I think I'm getting this extra. I think I can go up. I can make a good connection and make this a viable exercise to train the muscle I'm trying to. If I add some load, so you may even add enough weight that you don't get into the 6th set. Now you fail in the 5th. And then you add a little more weight, and you're feeling earlier in the 5th, and then you're feeling earlier end up feeling in the 4th.
Yeah.
As you progressively, so you might increase your weight by 30% over the course of 5 or 6 workouts. You come back around, but now you've gone from 200 to 275 or whatever on that particular lift, and you're connecting well with it. You can imagine then what would happen if you went back to 200. That'd be nothing.
Yeah.
For you. So that's for people. Sometimes people like to really get aggressive with the loading because it just feels good to go in there and just get, be an animal with it and get after it. And you still stay in that range. So the only reason I have that range is because I've got a daily undulating periodization in fortitude training where there's the loading sets that are 6 to 12 rep range. Right. The loads for a muscle round are somewhere around a 15 rep max. And then the pump sets are 20 to 30 reps. So we got heavy, moderate, and lighter loads. So you can mess around with the loading sets. You can keep your loading sets heavy as shit in the 6 to 8 range. Yeah. And keep your muscle rounds in the heavy range, and just keep your pump sets literally as straight sets using heavy load that you can just barely eke out 20 reps with, and just be a load monster if that works for you.
Yeah.
If you're someone who's maybe older and you have to take better care of your joints, then you just favor the higher rep ranges.
Can you explain and we do have more questions here too, but can you explain what you mean by failure in a muscle round? Because maybe to tell them what I did because my misunderstanding of it, because I feel like a lot of people could do what I did, thinking that, because I wanted to give 100% is what it came down to.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to, and I knew I'm shooting this on video and I'm going to post this and Scott's going to see it. Look how hard I'm working.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm going to go till I've got, body fluids coming out of every orifice.
Right. Exactly.
Blood, sweat, tears, shit, urine, the whole thing. I just want to I'm going to explode on video with effort.
Yeah.
So one of the ideas that it's funny because I see these things, they're actually being substantiated more so, and many people are talking about them. But one of the things that I put in fortitude training 5 or 6 years ago when I was kind of coming up with it is I recognize that the limitations in terms of recovery lie predominantly with the nervous system and then the endocrine and immune system in conjunction with that.
Yeah.
And when you're doing sets to failure, it's those reps that are in closest proximity to failure which create the greatest taxation on the nervous system. So you can run into a scenario where, depending on how hardy you are in that regard, the relative muscular stimulus relative to what you're doing to the nervous system ends up being less beneficial. If you continue to bang away at trying to grind out reps when you're very, very close to a true failure point at that maximal effort level. So if you do, for instance, you take a load that you can lift for 10 reps, and your 10th rep would be your absolute failure point, and you do sets of 8 and 9 with that, and maybe adjust because there'll be some fatigue, so that you're staying 1 or 2 reps shy of failure.
Right.
That gives you a lot of the bang for your buck. You see this in the training studies. This was the topic I was going to kind of bring up today. In the training studies, most of which have been done with untrained individuals. That's just the nature of what's available for the scientific study is finding untrained folks. You get pretty much all the bang, essentially the same bang for your buck in terms of muscle growth. You get equivalent muscle growth as if you were to go to failure. Doesn't seem to be an advantage overall if you look at the meta-analyses that have been done.
Really?
In terms of going to failure. Yeah, Schoenfeld's got one that's done there. But those are mainly untrained folks who can grow from all sorts of things. So you probably got a ceiling effect going on there. But then imagine, go back to that, using the 10 rep max loading. If you do that one set where you just go to give everything you possibly have and you go to true failure, that will substantially impact what you can do in the successive sets thereafter. Something that goes on, there's some immediate acute fatigue that presents itself in the workout. Yeah. You can see it.
You're spent.
You can sense it. You're just shot. You're like, that was the one. And that's why in DC training, Dante would have, for instance, on the upper body day, on the pull chest, he put back at the end. And he put, like, the Widowmaker would be at the last thing you do. Yeah,
because once you've done that, it's like, well, there's nothing's going to be as big as that,
It's a systemic stress that can carry over. I mean, you can do biceps after that and still have enough wherewithal to get a good stimulus from there. But there's something about that failure effort, or basically coming to where the next rep is just not going to happen, at least not safely. That has a massive impact, and I think I've talked about this on the show. But if you look at the different animal models, the different experimental models of muscle growth, you can create much more muscle growth in some animal models that you just wouldn't do with people than what you get from resistance training. Okay. And those animal models are like, they hang the weights from the quail's wings and look at the anterior latissimus dorsi, kind of like the equivalent in human would be like hanging a really heavy dumbbell, like strapping it to your arm and like looking to see what happens to your trap, and hope you don't like separate your shoulder or subluxate your humeral joint. And like that's an all day long affair. Or when they look at compensatory hypertrophy, they cut the soleus and look at the plantaris and gastroc growth. You get this massive growth that you just don't get, at least in terms of the rate and the magnitude for the most part, from resistance training. And we can compare animals and humans because the animal models of resistance training show basically the same rate and extent of muscle growth that you see in people. So animals are somewhat, you can kind of take that information and transfer it over. And what it says is that there's something, you can grow muscle to a greater extent and at a faster rate than in other ways that we would never do, because it wouldn't be helpful as a bodybuilder, for instance, to cut your soleus,
right?
To make your gastroc grow. That just wouldn't work. And you can't walk around with like 80-pound dumbbells in both arms all the time very well and not expect to have some skeletal issues that come from that.
Yeah.
But so the limitation is probably not the muscular system. If you tried to train in a continuous all-day fashion, which is what those muscles in the calves, the gastroc and plantaris, or if you're holding a weight, if you tried to go in the gym and train full body all the time, like 8 hours a day at the effort level that you put forth in a regular, you just wouldn't do it. That'd be it. You'd be burnt out like about 3 days, and you'd be gone. You can't work out for like 12 hours straight. So it's the nervous system that's the limiting factor here. So back to like how to execute muscle rounds and the reps and what you were doing and what I've basically instituted in all the set types. The fortitude training is I keep as much as possible. Sometimes you just kind of have a little mental reset, or you have to make sure your feet are in the right placement. So you have to kind of pause during the course of the set just to make sure you're in the right groove. But is to keep the reps continuous, as opposed to the discontinuous Widowmaker style. I'm going to go until and make this set last as long as possible and grind at every rep possible type of thing that you had been doing, that you do with Widowmakers, which basically allows you to do rep after rep after rep right at the point of failure. So that's a Widowmaker. People say you pick a set, you pick a weight you could do like 12 to 14 reps with, and then get 20. Well, obviously you can't. If you only get 12 to 14, that's a continuous set. You can't do 20.
Not continuously, at least.
Yeah, you couldn't. So that's why you stop and you rest long enough so that you can barely eke. And each of those last reps are basically, they're singles.
Yeah.
That if you were to attempt a double, would not be a double. It would be a failure. It would be a one and then the failure rep, and then the end of the set. So, but those are a phenomenal stimulus. You can work those in as an intensification technique, but you have to be careful with them. So in fortitude training, I've basically said, okay, we're not doing those. We're gonna try to focus. We're gonna keep the reps continuous. Avoid those grinder reps. So you get you get a favorable bang for your buck, benefit to inroads on the nervous system type of payback from the reps that you do, and you can get more reps for that reason, because you're not taxing your nervous system. You can train with higher volume, because there is a dose response with volume. The whole thing of it being the driver of muscle growth is, I think that terminology is a little it insinuates something that I think is not really the case when it comes to volume in terms of resistance training, but allows you to train with more quote unquote effective reps. This is before people were using the term, but reps that are going to drive muscle growth and accumulate high quality stimulus in the greatest volume possible, while at the same time minimizing those near failure reps that just whack the shit out of you. And it can just be that one, rep.
Yeah.
Like you're getting closer, like this is a go, okay, good, and I'm done, good. I had one more in me, I'm done, or I had two more in me. And you can step away from that and still have kind of a clear head. But if you go to that one where you're like, this is a death set, and you get done and you're just like, oh fuck, like a truck just hit you. There's something about that. Yeah, you know this. I know you've done this thousands of times, and so have I. So those are the ones you have to be somewhat careful in how you do those. So with a muscle round, doing each of those sets of 4, the way I suggested folks do them is you do the reps continuously. And the idea, of course, between those sets of 4 is that you're resting as much as possible.
Yeah. So
you're not like I've seen people before, like they do a biceps curl muscle round and they would just hold the weight in between.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't, you want full recovery in between the actual reps, but you want those reps to be continuous. So and it's tough. Like I have so many years of DC training
Yeah.
where that rule was not in place, and the Widowmaker that, I was always wanted to eke out more reps.
Sure.
I mean, I always sort of thought like one of the things that I had in my head, and I would tell people when doing a muscle round, is you want to make it look like from the outside, one, that you are trying to commit suicide, like that you're literally off your rocker. But if someone's watching you, they're thinking, okay, he's done. Which now he's done. Now he has to be done. Holy shit, he's going to get another rep.
Yeah.
Oh my, he's gonna. Oh my God! Like they keep on being amazed that you're continuing to go.
Yeah.
Because most people would have stopped a long time before that.
Yeah.
So that was my mentality, is like I would literally see past the possible. Sometimes this was even my preset visualization technique, because I know from my logbook that this is going to be, I got 19 before and I'm shooting for 20. And I would just say in my head, 26, motherfucker. And and I would literally, I've got a kind of a way to almost hypnotize myself. I said, I'm going to go for 26.
I get that.
And you set that into your mind's eye as being that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And as if that's a possibility. And sometimes very often it would manifest as such. But even if I wasn't 26, it might be 23.
Yeah. Which was still three more than you would have gotten had you told yourself I could get 20.
20, yeah.
I like that. You used a phrase there, see past the possible. I think that sounds really cool. I like that.
Right. Yeah. It's just, that's exactly what I would do. It's kind of like John Meadows' challenge sets.
Yeah.
There's the one with, there's one video that used to kind of, I think Muscular Development used a clip at the beginning of a lot of their videos for like a year and a half or 2 years of Antoine Vaillant when he was training with John at the old Elite FTS location. They've since moved. They got a new gym, but at the old compound. And he had like, I don't know, 150-pound dumbbells or something like that. And Antoine's really strong on presses.
Yeah.
And he's like, and John's like 30 reps. And Antoine's thinking like, I've never even done like 20 reps with this shit or something like that. But he just set that into his head, and he did like, and they were partial kind of pump style reps, but he put in his, and John told him this, and Antoine trusts John intimately, and because John, I think, was coaching him particularly at that time, and he's like, I can do this then. He just told me I can fly. I am going to fly, and I'm jumping off the building, and I'm going to like float across the city on the wings that I now have because I believe they are there. So
it's tough though, the continuous reps. I really want to nail that point home, that's what it is. And what I was doing was like you said, I was basically saving myself because I was at failure. I was on a squat machine, and I maybe got through the first 4, and then I took my 10-second pause, and then I got through maybe the next 4, but maybe the last couple weren't as good, and then I would start, get 2 and then take a breath, and then get 1 and then take a breath, and then get 1 and then, okay, rack it because I got my 10-second break now. But that's, it's taken retraining. And one of the phrases you told me, and I've thought about it ever since, and I've applied this to various areas of my training, is just walk off the cliff.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't even hesitate. Just put one foot in front of the next and keep walking right into that failure. Because I want to preserve myself and get that one more. Because I know I can get that one more. But it's about walking off that cliff, and it's a different kind of failure, because I've seen it now, Scott. Yes. I've seen it in that you can recover from that and you can do it again then. If you take it to that absolute widowmaker failure, which is an amazing experience to have, and I think everybody should know it in life intimately.
Yeah.
But like you said, when you do that, you're done, versus if you do what you're talking about and you just walk off the cliff, you can repeat that numerous times and you're not going to destroy yourself in the process.
Yeah. And some of it is that there's a difference there in terms of focus. There's sort of you can develop very much an internal focus when you're doing the continuous reps. So you're thinking like, let's say you're doing like some sort of a side lateral.
Okay.
All you're thinking is, I'm just going to grind the delts until they just cannot create another full rep. It's all about just focusing right there on the deltoids And when they're exhausted or when they can't continue, then that's it. Whereas if you're doing discontinuous, unless you're doing some kind of a widowmaker, you're thinking numbers, you're thinking reps, and your strategy is on basically, and it's an externally focused one where you're trying to get the weight to move
right
through the full rep range. So you might throw a little body English in there, and get bonkers and start doing cheat reps or those sorts of things. And that's a different, psychologically speaking, that's a different focus than an internal one where you're just like, all this is, I'm just going to grind the delts to a halt with continuous reps until they're done, and then I'll drop the weight down if needed if I haven't reached the sixth set of the muscle round. Whereas you're looking at just, I want to keep getting those reps. I'm going to keep tallying up the numbers. Your goal is something that's sort of external to you in a sense. It's like just, you want to ring the bell like at least 20 times because it's the widowmaker, right? And regardless of what actually is going on in the muscle that you're trying to hit.
Yeah.
And that's when you start bringing in the accessory muscles. I think that's some probably of why that is so taxing on the nervous system too, is because you're having to come up with really what is a very novel activation strategy, and a strenuous one, because you're on the, like if you're squatting, for instance, like the quintessential squat widowmaker, you're on you're on the verge of possibly injuring yourself, and people start cutting their range of motion short, and they start using their low back more so than their legs. And that fatigue basically is such that a lot of times when you're doing those and you're not doing them with good form, you're no longer using the muscles you're trying to train, and your nervous system on a rep by rep basis is having to try to figure out how to get you up and down, using what amounts to kind of a different strategy each rep.
But that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's like, it's like, it'd be like you're on a racetrack and you're trying to drive your car, and every 5 seconds the terrain is changing. So you're going from a gravel road to totally off road through a pasture, to a slick road with ice on it, and you're like, holy shit! I don't know what's going on. I'm just totally confusing. I can't get a feel for what's going on.
Yeah.
Whereas with the continuous reps, you're just grinding right until, and you're continuing with continuous reps until you hit that failure point, and then you drop down from there.
In the muscle. Yeah, that's the difference, is that you're in that muscle in particular, not when all the accessories have failed.
Yeah. But if it's legs, of course, there's a number of but it's in the muscles you're trying to target. So yeah.
We had a few more questions.
Yeah. Go ahead.
A couple popped up. Let's see. I'm just, we were asked, what are we drinking? I'm just drinking, this is a little shaker cup. Yes, but I'm just drinking water out of it.
Oh, this is just my, this is an Elite FTS one.
Nice. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I hooked up, the folks back in my hometown at my high school. They put in a training center.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So they used all Elite FTS stuff. So, Nate Harvey, I think is his last name. I hooked him up with that, so he sent me some goodies from the FTS. But This is intra workout shake.
Let's see here. How do you say this again, Scott? I know we've talked about it before. Is it? It looks like Kwan Loong
Oil.
Kwan Loong Oil. There were two questions. Did Scott ever talk about it? And then Ryan asks, does Dr. Scott have any tricks aside from Kwan Loong Oil? Moved from high volume to DC, and with poundages drastically increasing, elbows are already starting to feel it.
Yes, actually, on Elite FTS, if you find the article that is entitled "Rust Proofing the Iron Warrior," that is where people can find my description of Kwan Loong Oil, and even a way you can kind of use that. So I have talked about it a few times, but it's worth. So here's the thing: what happened with that? I think it first came up on one of Dave Henry's videos when we were putting it on during a workout, and like, what is this? And I spent years part of the time when I was in acupuncture school checking out topicals, and I tried, I don't know, at least a dozen, everything I could find. Some that I'd been using clinically, and some that other companies were selling. And the Kwan Loong Oil seemed like it was the best. And it's great for if you've got some niggles, so to speak, some creeping in arthritis or tendonitis. The thing people have to watch out for is you don't want to use it chronically all the time, continuously as a Band-Aid. It's got methyl salicylate in it, and that's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. So salicylic acid is what's in white willow bark. Aspirin is acetyl salicylic acid, so this is methyl salicylic acid.
Okay.
So that's great anti-inflammatory. It works locally wonderfully, but it's also going to inhibit protein synthesis and protein turnover. So if you've got an issue, let's say, for instance, where some of the or the tendonitis is maybe going to be a kind of a tendinosis, where the tendon is starting to kind of break down, that's not what you want to do. You don't want to inhibit connective tissue or collagen protein turnover with an anti-inflammatory, because then the recovery of the collagen that you're wanting to have healed and repaired is going to be impaired.
Yeah,
not a good thing. So you can kind of use it to, quote unquote, break the inflammation cycle if need be, and keep that inflammation from getting in the way. But something, if you haven't figured it out in like 2 or 3 weeks, then, and using that, then I would say there's something else needs to change. So as far as tricks go, there was a bunch of tricks in that article. The first thing is, this happens sometimes with people with DC training. And one of the things that people do, it's sort of, it's kind of a misnomer, I guess you could call it. So Dante, and I agree with this really entirely, is that he sort of has, a suggested kind of exercise, the big, heavy compounds that get most people the best growth.
Yeah.
Stuff, the harder it is, the better it's going to be, to some degree, in large part, for most people, for putting on muscular size. And DC training, at its core, is about getting just as large as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And of course, when you get more advanced, you can, refine the physique. So that's like, deadlifts and like, close grip bench presses, rack deads, of course, incline presses, dips, that kind of shit. But some of that stuff is not good on your tendons.
Sure.
Especially for some people. So people will be like, oh, I have to do overhead presses or behind the neck presses, and their shoulders just don't handle them well.
Yeah.
And it's not a good exercise for them, for their delts. So you just don't do it. You just have to say, even though like that would be in an ideal world, you'd be barbell squatting, and you'd be incline pressing with the barbell, and you'd be doing partial deadlifts from mid shin and blah, blah, blah. If those just don't work for you, don't do them. So whoever it was that asked about the tricks, my first thing I always suggest to people is, you can manage these things themselves. If he needs to, go see a professional, of course. Got to give the disclaimer. But don't do something that is causing pain. If you can tell during your warm-up, it's not a good call.
Yeah.
If you try like skull crushers, no.
I wish I knew that sooner.
Yeah.
I really do. I really do. Because there was a time I would have thought, no, you got to work through it.
Yeah.
You got to work through the pain even.
Right.
Or I just want to finish the set, Instead of being creative and finding something that does work, I think I've spent too many years doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people, I heard an interview with someone who's a pro, who's like not even 30 yet, and is like just wrecked.
Yeah.
And they, what they did, it was kind of like the Ronnie Coleman style thing, but in a condensed time frame, is they just train really, 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 really heavy with the exercises will get you the size, but they ignored all the obvious pain signals.
Okay.
And it's like shit. Like, and I can still squat. Barbell squat really doesn't work well for me. When I was doing Widowmakers, I had about an 8-month period where I was doing barbell Widowmakers on a squat.
Okay.
A couple of years ago. That was fun. And I still squat on a Smith machine. I can still squat, but that's because I don't do that. Like, I don't feel like I have to do it. I don't do it when it hurts.
Yeah.
In the wrong way. People are like, holy shit, man, you can still squat. And I'm like, yeah, because I just I didn't like abuse that, you know.
Yeah.
I don't even think about skull crushers. Like I couldn't. I mean, I don't even like want to lie in bed and do this movement, you know, with no weight in my hands.
Yeah.
Those hurt me from the very beginning when I was a kid. I couldn't even
Oh
like.
yeah.
How do people do these?
You know what I learned years later, and it was through listening to my body. I stopped doing those, but then B, later in life, I discovered that if I used dumbbells, I could do dumbbell skull crushers, and that's one of my meat and potatoes exercises now. I love it, and I don't get any elbow pain from it whatsoever. So
yeah. So you just, I mean, it's kind of there's a long haul marathon part to this whole thing too, you know.
Yeah.
That's hard to see when you're in the heat of the moment. So I know you got another recording you got to do.
We've got another question here.
Okay.
We have some time.
Okay. Cool.
Question being, so, and I'm not sure exactly. I get what he means, but I'm going to kind of abbreviate it here. Would you zigzag from compound or isolation, or just do thighs then quads? Or do you just do thighs, then quads, then hams?
That's David.
Okay.
Depends on the if you're in tier 1. This is a fortitude question on the loading sets.
Okay.
You only got one set for thighs, quads, and hams, so you can order them however you like. The zigzagging is only when you're going back and forth between a compound and an isolation.
Okay.
So, I mean, people say, well, how do you zigzag if there's no back and forth? Well, you really don't. It's just, if you're in the higher volume tiers, you're going to do 2 compound sets and isolation for quad and hams with tier 2. Tier 3 is 3 compound sets. Yeah. So those you would zigzag. I mean, you could, if you wanted to. I mean, you could do the isolation exercises first and then do 3 compounds in a row.
Yeah.
With thighs, like if you're doing like a squatting type movement or heavy leg press, you can tend to get gassed out. I've got 2-minute rest intervals between the sets. So if you did like, you know, a set of, 10, leaving a rep or 2 in the tank on squats, and then you waited 2 minutes to do another one, and then 2 minutes to do another one, a lot of people would gas out.
Okay, yeah.
So their cardiovascular system would just be too stressed to really give everything they could. So that's why it's nice to have those isolation movements in between, because that creates makes the limiting factor more so muscular than cardiovascular or ventilatory, respiratory, your lungs. So, but yeah, that's just, it's a matter of, now he says muscle round, Scott. Zigzagging is the term that applies to loading sets. So that wouldn't be used in conjunction with anything else. It's like saying, you know, how do I use my mouse to drive my car? You don't have a mouse in your car. You have a steering wheel. It's a totally different thing. So zigzagging just means the back and forth and the loading rounds. You can do the loading sets. You can do muscle rounds wherever you want, in whatever order you want to. Completely up to you. So check on page like 93 in the book when it explains under exercise order for muscle rounds and how to do a muscle round. And you'll see that, Dave.
All right. Cool. Sounds like he's got it.
Yeah.
What are you doing for the new year?
I don't know. It's Wednesday, right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to go have sushi now. I'm probably going to go have sushi again. I have no plans at all, man. Nothing.
Is your gym's open, I assume?
You know, people can see the gym that I went to today if they go. Like, it's a 24-hour Key Club thing.
Oh, perfect. So it doesn't matter. It's always open.
Yeah, there was no one there today at all. I went. Actually, you know what, dude? I didn't say anything. There was a homeless guy sleeping in the bathroom.
You're kidding me.
No, it's a young guy too.
Yeah.
So I got my head. There's no radio playing. I had my headphones playing. Yeah. And I was, started recording these things, and the shorts for Instagram, and I'm like I thought I was like I turned off my music, and I'm like, am I hearing something?
Yeah.
I don't know. I kept on thinking I'm hearing something, and eventually, like, a guy comes out of the bathroom.
Oh my God.
And I'd been in there like a half an hour or 45 minutes. And he walked out behind me and, kind of looked at me, and I looked around, and I'm thinking, and he was dressed kind of like he was maybe going to work out, but he had been sleeping in the bathroom.
Man.
So, yeah, felt bad for him. He probably was early 20s.
Oh wow.
But, yeah.
Wow. Just make sure you
But
keep your bag close. You know what I mean? Like your wallet
oh
and all that.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't. Yeah, he didn't seem like he was dangerous at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's just like I'm like because I don't know, like people coming out of the door and I can't hear with my headphones. I'm like, well, maybe someone came in, but there was not a car there.
Yeah.
There's,
Okay.
there's a lot of people who come to this gym I don't think who have cars
Okay.
because sometimes I'll come in and there's no cars and there's like three people at the gym already.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's awesome. The gym is it was like it's mine, baby. I had the whole gym to myself. So probably New Year's Day I will have the gym to myself no matter what time I come in.
Nice. I just sent you this video.
So
This is one of our listeners, Foy. He trains out at Novi Powerhouse. He posted this. He sent it to me. It was in his story. I don't know. He just happened to catch it. He knew something bad was going to happen, and this terrified me. This kid. Yeah, sure. It's like 8 seconds long. This kid squats like 185, I guess, and he loaded up this leg press with every plate he possibly could, and he broke it. He ended up hurting himself too, and they had to take him out in a stretcher. So I find out about this literally like an hour before I'm going to the same gym to train legs. You can imagine how terrifying that is, man. Last thing I want to do is get hurt. But I got to tell you, the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I haven't mentioned it on any of the shows, but terrifying to think he had 40 plates on this leg press.
I'm watching. I can't quite tell. The leg press actually broke.
No. He broke it came down on him. He broke his legs.
Oh,
and he broke the stops at the bottom when it crashed.
Oh, and then it broke his legs when the machine broke, and then he broke.
No. He just couldn't handle leg pressing 40 plates. And so it crushed him. And when it crushed him, it basically threw him out of the leg press.
I saw that part, yeah.
And broke the machine when it hit the bottom.
Oh, okay. I got you. So he broke and then it broke.
Yeah.
There was a guy that I competed against. It was one of my very first shows, is like in the year 2000, I think, in California.
Yeah.
And I think I might have mentioned this before. He was in a wheelchair, but he wasn't a handicapped competitor normally.
Okay.
He was on a leg press, and I'm trying to think. I can't remember the exact order, but heavy leg press. He tore his quad, and he felt like this is what he thinks happened. It's from as best he could recollect. He tore his quad, or maybe he tore his patellar ligament.
Yeah.
And then that leg blew out, and then the other leg he tried to hold it up, to rack it, and then he tore that one.
Oh yeah,
And then he had nothing left to hold the weight up, and it came down, and then he fractured like both femurs and tibias, on both sides or some shit like that. So he was in a wheelchair, but he was getting ready for the show. It's like he still competed. So they judged him. I said, "How are they judging you, dude?" He's like, "The judges are just sort of assuming that my upper body is in balance with my lower body would have been in balance with my upper body, and they're judging me, somehow like weighing it, imaginarily in their minds,
Weird.
as if that were the case." Yeah.
Yeah.
So he had a great upper body. He was definitely on the level. Should have been competing at. It was like a state level show, maybe the Contra Costa or something like that in Cali. But and I think he made it back.
Okay.
But eventually, but it was like, that's the thing with, so many machines. People go on the squat rack and they use the safety bars and they just don't. It's like, dude, you never know. And that was just kind of silly. That guy obviously. He had how many plates do you have on that machine in the video?
I think it holds 40. It has 4 wings, and I know it holds 10 per wing. I mean, I've gotten up to like 14 per side before, and that was too much. And then nowadays I don't do that much. I can get so much more out of less, and I think part of it is, being smarter, Yeah. But I just thought of that. And hey, one other thing, this could be a whole topic. Maybe we should talk about it another time. Yeah, let's do that. I met one of the technicians for Nautilus, and we had a discussion about the machines of today versus the machines of years ago. I thought about you, so I'll save that one, though. I'll make a note here, and I'll save that. And, anything else before we get out of here?
No, I had the topic. I'll just plant a seed, and we can talk about it more, and I'll provide some information. In when people are talking about the applicability of all the training studies that are coming out in the meta-analyses and what have you, And like at one point, like Victor Black, who you may know from Facebook, he had a discussion with Mike Isertel, and Mike was saying that he thinks that Dorian Yates may have been a better bodybuilder had he trained more in line with what the research is showing today. And that's possible. You could conjecture that for sure. But the thing that I think is missed so often when people dive into those details, when it comes to what's considered advanced or well-trained, sometimes that just means someone has been training for a year, 3 times a week.
Okay, yeah.
More. There is such a paucity of research with advanced, even intermediate level bodybuilders. That's one thing. And then the thing that I almost never, so consider, like, if you look at this research, does that apply to you? But one thing I never see is, like, so imagine you do get, I don't know, you get some guys with 7, 8, 10 years of experience. You bring in 20 of them. Yeah. And you convert them, you put them into 2 groups to test training frequency or volume or whatever it may be that you're examining in your particular study. What they've been doing before they come into your study is going to impact how those particular interventions affect them in terms of muscle growth. Some people might be detrained from what is done to them.
Okay,
Others, it might be much more optimal. It might be if they've been just training like 3 times a week, which is sometimes like just 3 times a week for a year, and like, you know, you bench press 125% of your body weight, like, right, that's not crazy, or it's just even 100% of your body weight. Then you put them in a real program, well, they're going to get newbie gains.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I almost never see a documentation or someone trying to, like, sometimes there are pre-training periods that have been done. Those are the best studies where they put people in and they say, we're going to just pre-train you to put everyone on a level footing. Yeah. So we can get rid of that interaction, because if you come from doing DC training and they put you on a high volume regime, right, you'll get blown out of the water. If you've been doing high volume and you've been doing too much, and then you go to a low volume, higher frequency regime, that might be growth city for you. Yeah. Huh. And if you don't, I mean, obviously you would think randomization would account for that and it wouldn't make that big of a deal, but it's still muddying the waters and increasing variability substantially. And that's another issue with advanced folks. One, you can't get them, they don't want to change their training program, but in changing their training program, you can be dramatically influencing what happens, you know, when they go from one training system to another. Yeah. When you throw them into the study. So anyway,
that would be an interesting topic. I'll look forward to it.
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a big one. So,
all right, guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and you will be able to continue seeing everything that comes out for another episode of Muscle Minds with Dr. Scott Stevenson. I'm Scott McNally. Check out Dr. Scott's book, Be Your Own Bodybuilding Coach. Got it on the shelf back there. And you can go to byobbcoach.com to get the ebook, Amazon for the hardcover, and of course truenutrition.com to support the show and buy great supplements with our code ADVICES. All right, we'll see you soon, guys.
Adios.